the show. I'm Ali.
And I'm Sarah.
And Sarah has literally climbed out of her deathbed to come and record right now. Because in the year of our Lord 2025, Sarah has come down with the COVID. So if she sounds a bit nasal, a bit bunged up, a bit sorry for herself, this is what it is.
I don't feel sorry for myself. I definitely sound nasally, so that's unfortunate. We're on the back end of it, everybody. I like to say up front, I've been vaccinated for 5 or 4 years now, whenever the vaccines came out. Let's just put that out there. If you listen to this podcast, that shouldn't be a surprise to you, hopefully. And I was on my way to schedule my booster this week with my flu and my COVID vaccines, and ended up with the COVID. So isn't that how life works? But you know what? It gave me a great opportunity to sit on the couch all weekend and watch a lot of football. And here we are. What a benefit it will bring to us.
Yes, everybody is jealous of the fact that you could, and we can get into this when we talk about the WSL, but the new kickoff times are causing major headaches.
I mean, let's be real. I did not watch those live. No. That was like a 4 a.m. kickoff for me. Are you kidding me? I slept 13 hours that night. I wasn't getting up at 4 a.m.
No, but we'll get into it because they're all kicking off at the same time instead of staggered kickoffs, and it is annoying everybody.
Yeah. They do that in the WNBA here, and it's been an annoyance for all of us as well, where it's like, well, there are 3 games that I want to watch, and I would love to watch them back to back to back, but instead, they're all on at the same time, and it's not good for viewership either. But we're not going to start off on a negative note, Allie.
Well, we're not. No, I'm going to tell Sarah a very quick story, and all of you guys.
Oh, I mean, I love when you like surprise me with something. Let's see what happens.
I love it. No, just because I want to give a quick shout out because I was at a very special game on Sunday. I was at Everton Tottenham at the new Everton Women's Stadium, Goodison Park.
That's right.
There was over 6,000 people there. It was freezing cold. It was a terrible September day on the Merseyside, but it was so good to see so many people because this is literally a record attendance for Everton because their previous ground at Walton Hall Park, it held about 1,500 people. There was 6,000 there, along with a healthy contingent from Tottenham who'd made the journey up north. And it was really good to see. And they've rebranded Goodison. It says Home of Everton Women now.
Oh, I love that.
It's been made properly their stadium and it is glorious. So I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Everton for that because it's looking so promising for them.
That's amazing. Allie, we covered this on this podcast within the past year, but for people who don't know, real quick, will you just give the brief background on Everton women moving into Goodison Park?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Everton have moved all around the northwest, really. They played in a place called Widnes, and then they were at Southport, and then they've been playing most of their games at Walton Hall, which is the training facility of Everton. The men have had a brand new stadium built, much nearer to the city, and it was originally going to knock down Goodison, but Goodison is such a historic football venue in the UK. Like, it's one of the oldest, it's one of the old school ones, and there was a bit of an outcry. So what Everton said is, all right, we'll give it to our women's team. And this is huge because it is a historic football ground. This is like if Man United moved out of Old Trafford and giving Old Trafford to the women. It's massive. And like I said, they've really made it theirs. They've made it, this is Everton women's home ground with all of the branding. They've got all of the wrapping with their players. It is beautiful, I have to say. Other teams take note.
And I think it's made Everton a more attractive prospect since that happened for players.
Oh, yeah. You look at the transfer window they had this summer with the players they've managed to attract. And you're like, being like, yeah, you're going to play week in and week out on this historic ground?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, for sure. So I was so excited to go.
Bummer of a home opener since they lost 2-0 to Tottenham. Tottenham, 2 wins to kick off this season. Nobody saw that coming. We're going to get into that today. We've got so much NWSL, so much WSL. With the NWSL, we're going to talk about, of course, what happened with Savannah Demelo. We're going to talk about the Jaeydn Shaw trade that happened at the end of last week. And we're going to get into our game of the week, Kansas City against Washington Spirit. How could it not be the number 1 against the number 2? And we're going to briefly discuss the salary cap in the NWSL. And if it's beneficial to the league right now. And then we're going to get into the WSL. We're going to talk about what's up with Liverpool, what's up with Tottenham, 2 wins, as we just said. We're going to talk about West Ham. Sorry, Allie. We're going to preview Arsenal versus United this coming weekend. And we're going to chat about this hot topic discussion Allie has brought to us. Jess Park, Grace Clinton. Who got the better end of that deal? It's a packed episode. Let's do it.
As ever, let's start with Sarah's side of the pond and look at the NWSL. Before we get into our game of the week, there's a couple of things that have happened news-wise that we must touch on. The most scary of them all, I have to say, was the suspension of the Seattle Reign versus Racing Louisville game because Savannah Demelo collapsed and was taken off the field on a stretcher. And yeah, completely scary moment. Obviously, our thoughts, prayers, and well wishes are going out to her. What do we know so far? What have they told us?
All we know at the moment is that Savannah Demelo, and this is as of Monday, we might get more developments when this drops Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Savannah Demelo is stable and alert. We have to applaud the league because this happened with Savvy King and the game continued, and the league got a lot of pushback and a lot of flack, including from us, who condemned that choice and said that game should have never gone on. The players said it should have never gone on. The league said that they have learned from that, and they have, because they suspended this game. It completely stopped, and they will reschedule and replay it, and that was the right decision. The NWSL released a statement on Monday saying the same thing, saying that, quote, postponing the match was the right decision as nothing is more important than the safety of players and staff on the field. So, terrifying moment for everybody. I'm really glad that the NWSL has shown their ability to learn and grow.
So now, for anybody who doesn't know, will it be that they will continue from the minute that the game was suspended, or will it be a brand new 90?
Based on the rule book, I mean, again, this is kind of uncharted territory with the NWSL, because in the rule book it does say, if the game is past a certain minute, then they will pick it up from there. And that minute is way later in the game than when this game got suspended. But there aren't really specifics about this instant where somebody collapses, what happens. Based on everything that's in the rule book right now, my assumption, I'd be shocked if it was otherwise, is that they will just start anew. This happened in the first half. It's not like they were 80 minutes into the game. So I think that they will just start anew. It was a 0-0 game. Like, I think that all things considered, even if it wasn't that, if it was like 2-0, I still think that because of where they were in the game, they would just start anew. So that is what I do expect from them. And our hearts go out to Savannah Demelo, who also had an incident earlier this year, March 22nd, in a match against Bay FC. She went down on the pitch after feeling dizzy. So this is extra scary, and we're just happy to read and see the reporting that she is, quote, stable and alert.
The next news item, I was surprised at this. You weren't, so I was really excited to get into this, which is transfer news. Jaeydn Shaw has been transferred to Gotham.
I love this.
So is it from, she was at North Carolina, correct?
Yep.
So some backstory is the NWSL's secondary transfer window closed on August 25th for incoming international transfers. However, intra-league trades can still be done and made up until the league-wide roster freeze of October 9th. Now, we got into it previously in the pod, which is I didn't realise that teams couldn't, transfer into each other. I didn't realise that wasn't a thing until you were like, yeah, no, that's not been a thing. And then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, you're right, it's not been.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think of it as something that's specific to the United States. But it is. I mean, it's just a trade. It's just a trade, really. But yeah, it's the same as you selling a player to another team, but we just call it intra-league transfers for better. That's the best way to describe it, because Shaw went to Gotham for an intra-league record transfer, or I shouldn't use the word transfer, but I will, of $1.25 million. That's more than double the intra-league record that was just set in August when the KC Current paid $600,000 for Utah Royals Allie Sentner, which we will talk about when we get into our game of the week. This is a great move, Allie. I want you to first say why you were surprised, and then maybe I'll get into why I'm not.
So I was surprised because she was a marquee signing for North Carolina
Yeah.
in not that long ago.
No, in this past offseason.
Exactly. This past offseason, she was a marquee signing for North Carolina. She was on all of the promotion material. She did all of the press and everything else. It was a huge deal. So the fact that she's gone across to Gotham after a couple of months, weeks even.
No, I mean this whole season.
Yeah.
It's been the whole season. So it's been since March, but it still hasn't even been a whole season.
It's not been a whole season. So yeah, that's why I was like, to trade your marquee signing after not even a full season was surprising to me.
When you think about it from that perspective, I understand. But I think when you look at it from the perspective of, this is a 20-year-old Jaeydn Shaw who spent last year at San Diego Wave, whose turmoils as an organization have been very well documented, and how many head coaches she ripped through once Casey Stoney left is, we shouldn't even count. And a lot of players left San Diego Wave, and the optics of it were that was an organization with turmoil, and they want to move into a place with stability where they can grow and they can develop as players. And that's what it looked like the move was for Jaeydn Shaw into North Carolina. Now, for those who've been following the NWSL, this happened while Allie and I, in the 3 weeks we were on break after the Euros and before we kicked back off with season 8. North Carolina Courage were able to very quietly fire their head coach, Sean Nahas, in early August. The team's statement is only 2 sentences long, noting that Nahas's contract had been, quote, terminated. I'm going to read the whole statement because it's literally 2 sentences. It's, quote, "The North Carolina Courage remain focused on the continued development of the team and maintaining a professional, competitive environment for players, staff, and supporters." That's it.
That's it.
So that's it. Nahas took over as interim coach in the fall of 2021, following the firing of Paul Riley, who we all know appeared in all of the reports, who allegedly sexually coerced former players and was eventually banned for life from the NWSL. And then Nahas took over. He became the full-time coach, and now he has departed in August. Now, whether Jaeydn Shaw wanted out of North Carolina before Nahas departed or after, it doesn't matter. I can see a case for both. Number one, she had stability with this head coach, and then he left. Now she wants out. Or number two, there was never stability, and now there's even more instability, and so she wants out. The main point for me is that Jaeydn Shaw wasn't shining as a player at North Carolina. Let's look at it from the player perspective. She was not shining, and now her skill set, I think, is being used much, much better at Gotham FC. I think she's shining. She's found her flow. She looks lighter. She looks happier. She spoke about that after the game too, and I'm happy to see her in an environment where she feels like she's growing as a player, because her light just got so dim in North Carolina, and she was almost forgotten a little bit. And I think it's a little mirrored, I think, in what we'll talk about later on when we get into Allie Sentner now playing with Kansas City Current. But I'm so happy for her in this trade, because I think it's great for her and it's great for Gotham. Sorry, North Carolina fans. I'm so sorry. Bad for you.
I was going to say Gotham very much needed Jaeydn Shaw, so it should definitely work out for both.
But I don't know. I mean, we've seen this, and sometimes it's hard to, and it's impossible to anticipate, but we see this all the time, I feel like, Allie, in every league, where a star player goes to a team, and for some reason, maybe it's the way that team plays, maybe they don't vibe with the coach, whatever it is, they just don't shine as bright, and a move is always good for them. And I think that's the case here.
So let's talk our game of the week, which is Kansas City versus Washington Spirit. That is the battle of number 1 versus number 2. Now, on paper, it's a bit of a damp squib, your favourite phrase, because it was a 0-0 draw.
Can I say something about damp squib?
Oh, here we go.
Somebody told me the other day that it's quite a posh thing to say. Is it?
Yeah, I suppose it probably is, to be fair.
I thought it was like slang, and somebody was like, that's posh. Anyways, continue. Yes, you can look at 0-0 and think that it's a damp squib, but I don't know, for those of us who love a chess match of a game, that's what we got here.
So, for those that don't remember, Kansas City has already secured their playoff place. Not only have they secured their playoff place, they know they're going to be in the top 4. So, it was already a good day to be Kansas City. However, there is still a lot for them to play for. Washington can still reach Kansas City. That means they could still get the Shield. So therefore, going into this game, Kansas currently quite high up with 49 points. Washington have 35 points, which is a 14-point difference, but there's still 7 games to play. So a win here would have reduced Kansas's hold, but elevated Washington. So there was quite a lot to play for. However, it ended 0-0.
Yeah, still 14-point difference. So basically everything's still up for grabs, but like 1 fewer games to play for. Kansas City still haven't won the Shield though, right? Because there's 6 games now and 14-point difference. And if Washington win out, that's 18 points for them. But then they also need Kansas City to basically lose out, which is, it's hard to fathom. But it's still statistically possible. But yeah, I think you're right, Allie. The 3 points here would have been absolutely massive for Washington Spirit.
Yep, no, I have to say it was a pretty huge battle, especially as the Spirit had to play with 10 players in the final 25 minutes. Do you want to talk about the red card? Because it wasn't a straight red card, right?
Yeah, it was the second yellow. Hal Hirschfeld got her first yellow at the end of the first half and then got a second yellow kind of like in the middle of the second half. I mean, there's not that much to say other than I actually really loved, in that moment, you really felt like, oh no, this is now Kansas City's to lose, right? Because this is the team that they can score like no other. They've got threat after threat, and now they're up 1 player for the next 20 minutes. Like, it kind of seemed like that. But I thought Washington responded really well. I thought that the substitutions that were made by Washington's head coach, Adrian Gonzalez, were absolutely the correct move. The commentators were talking about, who do you put in the midfield in place of Hal Hirschfeld? Nobody. You can't replace Hal Hirschfeld. She is that important to this Washington midfield. What you need to do is put in some forwards, put in some legs that can stretch, that you can boot a ball really just one-dimensionally, boot a ball over the back line of Kansas City and let them run onto it. And that's exactly what Washington did, and I thought it was perfect. And Washington is a team that they haven't all been healthy all together at once. And when they are scary, scary good. Like, arguably on pace with Kansas City good. The only difference between these two teams is that one has stayed healthy and one really hasn't stayed that healthy. Obviously, I'm not saying Kansas City isn't missing some people. I mean, Temo Shawinga sat out that game. DiBernardo is out on maternity leave. But Washington Spirit are a frightening prospect. And as opposed to last year when they started the season healthy and started losing players as the season went on, they've kind of done the opposite. And they're getting everybody back. And they're getting everybody back at the right time. And really what this game did for me is it forced me to sit there, look at the screen and think, is this all kind of a bust for Kansas City if they can't win the championship this year? The Shield's all well and good, but if they can't win the championship this year, like if they get to the ship and then they lose it again, that's really defeating for this franchise. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like, I can see these two teams battling it out in the championship, and I could see it going to Washington.
That's why your end is stupid. Just win the most amount of games.
It all comes back to Allie's distaste for the playoffs and the championship.
Yes, because it's stupid. But anyway.
I mean, this game was just a blast, Allie. Like, it was... These teams play great football, and I'll make the argument for Kansas City, the fact that they're going to win it all this year. We just talked about last week with Orlando. Why did Orlando win last year, Allie?
Because they had a cracking defensive team and a really good scorer in Barbara Banda.
Yeah, but defense wins championships. And Kansas City didn't have that last year. You know what they've got this year? The best defense in the league. They've allowed 10 goals over 20 matches in total. Their goal differential is crazy. They can also score, by the way. They put away the most goals. They've put away the most goals and allowed the fewest. They can do it on both ends. And so for me, that's the biggest change from Kansas City from last year. And I mean, that's an argument for them to be able to win the championship. But I think without a doubt, and no disrespect to Gotham, who sits in third place, these are without a doubt the two best teams in this league. And I think it'll be a damn shame if they're not the two battling it out in the championship. And it'll be a blast if they do.
So we've mentioned her name a few times this podcast, but you have some things you want to mention about Ali Sentner, because obviously huge move.
I mean, so she went from the Utah Royals to Kansas City for $600,000. At the time, it was the largest intra-league transfer. She got the start with Kansas City in this game this past weekend. We haven't seen her start. We haven't seen her looking all that comfortable in this lineup yet. I hope she will, because what she can add to an already stacked team is like pretty incredible. But I think it's very similar to the conversations that we have, Allie, when you're like, well, why are all of these players going to Chelsea? They're not going to get minutes. It's almost the same when you look at Ali Sentner in Kansas City, in the sense that like how she plays, or how she plays best at least, possibly isn't how Kansas City are utilizing her. And so is this actually the best move for her as a player? Because it does feel a little like she's faded. Now, that doesn't mean she's not growing and maturing in practice and playing against all of these top class talent players, but she definitely has faded a little bit in terms of the league, seen a little bit less playing time. She seems a little in her head because she's playing a slightly different role, because she's fitting in where Kansas City do need her to fit in, which is in place of Vanessa DiBernardo. And this is a team that was built for Vanessa DiBernardo, and it's hard for an Ali Sentner to slot in and play like Vanessa DiBernardo. Now, I hope that can evolve and change into next year, but I think it's something to keep an eye on, because if not, maybe a move is in store again.
Speaking of moves, transitions, and everything in between, we have to talk about this because we're starting to see a bit of an influx in NWSL players, specifically American NWSL players, coming over to the European leagues, and again, specifically the WSL at the moment. You know, we just saw Alyssa Thompson sign for Chelsea. Arsenal obviously have Emily Fox and Jenna Niswanger. And we've seen a fair few over the years. Obviously, Man City had Sam Mewis and...
Yeah, I think that the COVID situation can be thrown out, but yes.
But we are starting to see it, because obviously Corbin Albert and Lindsay Horan play in Europe now. You know, we
Crystal Dunn.
You know, I know slightly longer in the tooth, shall we say, but Morgan Gaudreau has just signed for Newcastle.
Yeah.
Like,
did you mention Naomi Girma, Kat Macario?
There we go. Like, there are so many coming over to Europe, and I just want to look into why we think this might be.
I think this is a pretty hot topic discussion, because a lot of the chatter has been about, well, it's because players can get more money over there. And I think that's dead on. I think it's absolutely accurate. Obviously, there's other factors that might lead into the decision, but we have to examine this big difference between the leagues, which is that the NWSL has a salary cap and the WSL does not. And for anybody not from the United States, a salary cap is a very common thing here in the United States. Is this helpful, or is this for me to explain this, Allie?
No, please do.
Asking my resident English.
No, please do, because this is something I feel like the WSL should introduce. So it will be very good to hear how this works for you guys.
The funny thing with American sports leagues is that we do everything we can to make it as fair and even between teams as possible, which is hysterical, all things considered, and ironic and whatever. But the salary cap is just one of those. So a salary cap in quite simple terms just means that every team is limited to spending X amount of dollars. You cannot spend over that designated amount. So it doesn't matter how deep the owner's pockets are, because all teams have a maximum amount of money that they can spend. How you distribute that spending is all up to you, but you cannot spend over that amount. And so because of that, it limits how much money teams spend on players, and it limits how much everybody is paid. Because of that, we're seeing a lot of players move from the NWSL to the WSL because they can get more money in the WSL where there's no salary cap. Now, without the draft, that is one of the only, if not the main thing, keeping the NWSL as a competitive league top to bottom, where still any team can beat any other team on any given day.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we have something similar-ish over here, which is we have a thing called financial fair play, which does involve that they can't spend too much, and that's to try and stop a monopoly. It's mainly in the men's game, but as we have seen with various teams, only certain teams are punished for it and other teams aren't, so it's not really widely enforced.
Interesting. I'm curious real quick before we get deeper into this, why you want it in the WSL. And is it quite simply because of what I just said, that it'll help make top to bottom a lot more even?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not saying that I want, obviously in an ideal world, everybody would be on an equal footing, and it would be that any team can beat any team on any given day. But also I do think it helps give a more structural soundness to the league, because I couldn't think of the right word, but just because I read an interview with West Ham's manager Rhiannon Skinner recently, and she said women's football is still quite fragile in the UK. As much as, we are one of the best leagues in the world and we have so many players that want to come and play for us, we've still seen teams such as that we used to be in the WSL. So Yeovil doesn't exist anymore, got merged with another team, and that team are now in one of the lower divisions. Doncaster Bells, one of the primo first teams in women's football over here. It gave us Millie Bright and other players. That thing, again, in lower leagues, got relegated, only got brought back because into the current division because another team collapsed. Blackburn Rovers gave us 3 different Lionesses. They've now fallen into a lower division because of Reading. So many down. Sunderland fell down, have now clawed their way back up to the Championship. But there are so many teams that this is the thing. So it helps strengthen an already fragile league, because if you're top heavy, if the top 4 clubs are the ones that are spending all of the money and getting all of the players, then that's when you get your separatist league, and then there's not much incentive for other teams to get players.
Well, you've already expressed your displeasure with Chelsea buying up everybody.
I don't like it. And if they can do it, then you know what, fair enough. But at the same time, I'm like, how is that good for player development? Because look at Mia Fischel. She was brought in, lauded as this great signing for Chelsea, and has played about 20 minutes for them, and then has gone back to the NWSL because she just wasn't part of their structure,
There's a huge upside, and the downside is what we're seeing right now, which is that players are leaving to go get more money. A player, Naomi Girma, who would have been the face of the league still, has left to go get some more money and play under different management. I'm not just saying that that's the only reason. I hope that that's clear. But I'm just saying that is the other side of the coin with this. So I think that the NWSL is approaching kind of a precarious spot right now where I think something does need to be done in the future. What that is, I'm not sure. I think it's a good idea to implement something like, and I'm not saying to do this exact thing, but something like the MLS Beckham rule. And for those who don't know, the MLS Beckham rule is basically a rule that the MLS made so that David Beckham could come play in the MLS, which is basically the salary cap applies to all of these players, but it doesn't apply to this player. So you can play him as much as you please, and then your salary cap applies to all of your other players. And maybe there's something in the NWSL that allows you to designate 3 players where the salary cap doesn't apply to them, but it applies to everybody else. Obviously, that has its own issues. I'm not saying that's the perfect solution, but I think we're approaching a moment where the NWSL is going to have to make a decision if they're going to try to find or create a rule that finds an in-between so that they're not consistently losing stars to Europe for more money. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I do think it's true, because obviously money is a huge thing. I do think there's also a pedigree, and I know you always say I'm Eurocentric, but there was actually
it is Eurocentric to say that.
But it is, but also there was but there was this really interesting article, and I will link it to our socials, which is talking about how name of clubs still carries so much weight, because Man United quite publicly do not treat their women's team that well. Yet they managed to sign Jess Park, they managed to sign Rolfo, they've managed to sign quite a few world-class players because the Man United brand is massive.
I would argue it's more because of Champions League than the brand. I think that a lot of players are going because they want to play in Champions
yeah, but
League.
Man United were getting these players when they didn't have Champions League. They were getting these last season when they didn't have Champions League. What I'm saying, there is a lot.
Well, they also have money. They have deep
Yeah, but they don't pay
pockets.
them. They pay their women's team barely anything. This is what I'm saying. There is something about the amount of times, and yes, I swear maybe probably is a little bit of spin, but the amount of times people go, I used to dream of wanting to play at Old Trafford. I've wanted to play, at Stamford Bridge and, these historic grounds. And you're seeing that more because they're saying about, it was an article about London City, to be honest, and they were saying about how they, at the moment, all they really have to attract players is money, because there is no historic ground, there is no history, there is no anything else, because they are a brand new team, which is what the NWSL has the problem with.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
Is the fact that there is no, maybe in a few years' time, it might be that, a player really wants to go and play at Gotham because of what Gotham, like the players, I want to follow in Ali Krieger's footsteps. I want to follow in Kelly O'Hara's footsteps. That might come, but at the moment, there isn't that pedigree.
Yeah, that's fair. I still think that a huge draw for players, which I can't blame them, is also Champions League. I think that's a huge, huge piece of it, because that's not something that you get anywhere else. And yes, you can say, well, like the CONCACAF W Championships and, okay, but it's not the same. Again, maybe we're back to the pedigree argument, but it's just not the same. It's not as built out. So yes, and I think that the NWSL used to have that allure for players in other parts of the world, where the U.S. women's soccer pedigree, kind of that air was around the NWSL. And I think it's kind of lost that a little bit, for better or for worse. I think probably for the better. But now it is truly just about clubs establishing themselves as these long-standing entities, which I think they're well on their way to doing. It'll be interesting to see how this flows in the next 5 years, because I think that if the NWSL doesn't either increase the salary cap or make an adjustment, we're going to see this trend continue.
Side note, over here, you hear a lot of young players wanting to play for Seattle or Portland, because those are the two teams that have the most history over here.
I love it. Keep that in, Mike. Keep that in.
All right, you want to keep that in, but it's true, though. Like, over here, when you say, if you're going to play for America, who are you going to play for? It's Seattle and Portland, because
100%. If you were a professional soccer player, you, Allie, right now, and you had to pick an NWSL club to play for, where do you want to go?
Seattle.
I want to go to Portland.
There you go. See? It is, though.
Even though they have turf, and I hate turf, I want to go to Portland. That's it. You're totally right. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world.
To España, and Barcelona is on a roll. 3 wins out of 3 with an emphatic win this weekend. Atletico are hot on their heels in second, also with 3 wins out of 3. However, Real are in 7th after a poor start to their season.
To Germany, a shock loss for Eintracht Frankfurt has seen them fall to 6th place. Newcomers Hoffenheim are currently top of the table with 2 wins out of 2, with Bayern Munich following close behind.
To Scotland, and Rangers remain top of the league after their 4-1 win this weekend. Celtic are second after their much-needed win. However, newly promoted Hamilton are having a rough start to the season with 5 losses out of 5.
And finally, to Mexico, it is hotting up in La Liga MX. What else is new? Just 5 points separate the top spot and 6th position. Tigres are holding on to the champion spot after their win over Pumas. Second place America lost their match, which has allowed Tigres to pull away, whereas third place Pachuca won 5-0, closing the gap on second to just 2 points. To the WSL, or as others call it, the WSL 1.
No one calls it that.
We got a lot to discuss after weekend 2 of the WSL. We're just going to rip through all of the scores really quickly. Arsenal took down West Ham 5-1. City took down Brighton 2-1. Chelsea took down Aston Villa 3-1. Manchester United, it's been a tough entrance to the league for London City, who just came off of playing Arsenal and now lost to United 5-1. Leicester City beat Liverpool 1-0 despite getting a red card and playing down a player. And Tottenham beat Everton 2-0. And we're going to start with this Leicester City Liverpool, because what is up with Liverpool, Allie? They had a solid finish to last year. If we look at where they finished the 24-25 season, they ended up finishing in 7th place, and they had a great end to the season. What's going on?
I mean, first off, they have not invested. They lost Olivia Smith to Arsenal. They got £1 million for Olivia Smith. What have they done with it? What have they done? They took other Sam Kerr, Scottish Sam Kerr from Bayern, had her on loan, and then have now made her a permanent player. We have to do it, Matt. It did make me laugh when I think Chelsea...
Wait. Yeah, we're literally about to say the same thing. You say
because Chelsea put their there's only one Sam Kerr, and then Liverpool were like, actually, there's 2.
There's quite literally not just one Sam Kerr.
There's not.
And there's not just one in the WSL either.
Exactly. But they haven't really invested. They had a great interim manager at the end of last season who took over from when Matt Beard was let go. And instead of keeping that interim manager, they brought in Gareth Taylor. Now, we all know what our feelings about Gareth Taylor is.
I don't know how he continues to fool everybody. How did he get this job? Like, it's unbelievable to me. I agree they should have kept their interim manager. Unbelievable right now. And look, if this isn't proof in the pudding, I don't know what is. I don't know. So you're saying basically this lack of success is because they were able to, they got $1 million for Olivia Smith, but they didn't turn it around and turn it into acquiring more players. They just sat on it.
Yeah, they've sat on it. They didn't replace her. They haven't brought in, and they brought in a couple of young talent, but they've not brought in any established talent. And yeah, if I'm going to be honest, it's going to be a tough season being a Liverpool fan.
To say the least, they just lost 1-0 to Leicester City. Leicester City played with 10 players for basically the entirety of the second half. And mind you, this is a Leicester City team who I think we both have picked to be relegated this year. Like, this is a team that did not do much in the offseason. They didn't even hire a head coach. Like, and you're losing to Leicester City. If I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm very, very concerned right now. All right, let's move it along from one team who we thought might get relegated to another. And I was kind of between, I was like, I think Tottenham could be in that relegation battle, duking it out with Leicester City, because if you saw the end of Tottenham's season last year, it was certainly not a pretty one. And yet here Tottenham sit, 2 wins out of 2 games. They're coming off a 2-0 win at Everton. Their first game of the season, they beat West Ham 1-0. Their first big test is coming up this weekend. They'll host Manchester City. But Tottenham, there's so much to say about this team. A club that in so many moments could have injected some cash and competed with the top 4, and instead have been content to be a mid-table team, have recently been falling to the bottom. I expected them to stay in the bottom this year, but they're off to a 2-0 start. Are we fooled by this, Allie? What do you want from them? What do you see from them, I mean?
No, I'm not at all. So I was at both of their games. So the West Ham game was a 1-0 win with a penalty. You know what? Yeah, Kat Gorey shouldn't have brought down a player in the box. That's what happened.
But Kat Gorey is going to do what Kat Gorey's going to do, baby.
Exactly. Kat Gorey's going to do what Kat Gorey's going to do.
And we're going to let her do it.
Oh, absolutely. But did they play well before that? No. Their attacking threat is still really only Beth England. And defensively, it was quite shaky. They were better against Everton, but it's still not great. I think we really need to see what they're going to do when they come up against a Manchester City, a Manchester United, an Arsenal and a Chelsea, because they've you know what, you've got to beat the teams around you. They've definitely done that. I will give them kudos for that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're still in the bottom half of the table come Christmas.
Bottom half, but do you expect them in the bottom third?
Yes.
You also expect them in the bottom third?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right now, just as it stands, they are one of 4 teams who are 2 wins and no losses. It is United, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham. And those are the 4 teams that are 2-0. But speaking of Tottenham beating West Ham, let's talk about West Ham, because I'm not going to lie, Allie, I'm a little concerned for you and for West Ham. First game of the season.
It's been 2 games.
We got to talk about it, though. It's still 2 games. And look, every game is important in this league. Tottenham won 1-0. We just touched on that. West Ham got whooped by Arsenal 5-1.
This is why you want to talk about it.
European champs.
This is why you want to talk about it.
No, it's not. I do. Are you concerned that West Ham could be another Liverpool type, where they finished last season well because they brought in a lot of talent in that January transfer window, but they're struggling out of the gate? They didn't lose players, which is great, but is this just kind of like one fluke loss and then they played Arsenal?
Exactly. My notes literally are, we played Arsenal, no, I'm not worried. Talk to me in December. Like, we take on Brighton this weekend. If we don't get anything out of Brighton, then I will be concerned. But,
okay.
like, we played...
Quote that. Cut that. Timestamp that.
Yeah, we played well against Tottenham. In fact, my friend who came with me, who is a Man City fan and has come to many West Ham games with me, as a neutral, said it's the best West Ham side she's seen in a long time. Again, it was category doing category things, which is why they gave away the penalty. Arsenal are looking scary this season. We'll talk about it when we talk about the upcoming game. So no, I'm not. If we're not beating Brighton, if we're not beating, Everton, even London City, in the next couple of games that we've got, then I'm concerned. But no, losing 5-1 to Arsenal doesn't concern me.
And mind you, it's an Arsenal without Leah Williamson too. All right, let's talk about that then. Arsenal and United are playing each other this upcoming Sunday night. Well, Sunday night for Allie. I believe it's a 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific if you are in the United States. First big test for both teams. What do we expect?
With every time with these 2 teams, it's going to be one of 2 things. It's either going to be the most cagey game you've ever seen, and it's
right.
And it's like, because like I was at the Manchester United Arsenal fixture at Man United last season, and it was so cagey, and like it took forever for Arsenal to score, and then Man United got one back in the dying moments because both teams didn't want to go forward. They didn't want to lose the upper hand, and so they just didn't. Or it's an utter goal fest because they absolutely go for it and go for the jugular. I think it's early enough in the season that they will actually go for it, because they are both, you know what, if one of them doesn't win, then okay, you might fall to 4th, but you've then got time to pick it back up. If this was later in the season, I would go with the cagey one. I do say Man United are a bit stuck because Millie Turner came off with a shoulder injury in the London City game. That's quite pain because she's quite a key centre-back for them. Obviously, we've talked about Arsenal's youth in the defence. So I think it's going to be an utter goal fest.
I think it'll be a goal fest, but I think it'll be one-sided. I'm sorry. Like you just said, Arsenal looks scary good this year. They're scoring for fun. They scored 9 goals in 2 games. And, yes, it's been against London City in London City's WSL debut and then West Ham, but that's not to disrespect West Ham. I mean, you're saying that West Ham probably could be a mid-table team right now. Okay, well, you're scoring 5 goals against a potentially a mid-table team right now, especially considering what you just said about Millie Turner, especially considering how much Arsenal are scoring. If I'm United, that's not the matchup I want to walk into. When these 2 teams come up against each other, it could be cagey or it could be wide open. And I do think we're going to get more of an open game, but I think it's absolutely going to be in Arsenal's favor just simply based on how both of these teams are playing right now.
I disagree for the sheer fact that based off of your logic, Man United are the stronger team because they've both scored 9 goals. Man United have conceded 1 less goal than Arsenal.
Okay, but 1 less goal is not something you can hang your hat on.
No, but technically, if we're going by your logic, technically, Manchester United are the stronger team. And I'm probably going to give it to United,
Wow.
I think Arsenal are good. And like I said, they are scary good. But, and also Man United are playing in the midweek because they've got their second qualifying game against Brann, so maybe that will be a factor. But I'm still giving it to Manchester United.
Can we talk about Melvin Mallard, who is 4 goals so far this season in 2 games for United. Holy moly.
And she loves playing for that club. She's come out and talked about how she was a Man United fan, so to play for Man United. This is what I mean about pedigree, harking back to our previous conversation.
Yeah.
There is a history there. And so, she is on fire right now. And the fans love her and she loves them. And also, if you didn't see, Ella Toon put a picture of them in a post-game huddle and was like, Melvin coming up with the reason why she didn't finish her hat-trick on my perfect cross into the box.
Here, I think she's the key to this game. If Arsenal can shut her down, I think Arsenal can win this game. If they can't find a way to shut her down, which is very possible they can't, then I think that you might be right. But if Arsenal defensively can shut her down as a player, it's Arsenal's for the taking, hands down. She is the key. She's been the missing piece for United. She is an absolute threat. For those who don't know, 25-year-old French international. Just a star in the making, I think. Played for Lyon and now has made her way over to United. I've just been, we knew how good she was, but I've just been astounded at her so far this year. Just astounded. Okay, so you've convinced me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it'll be a goal fest on the side of Arsenal. I think it could very well be a goal fest on both sides, but I'd still give the edge to Arsenal, and I still will say that if they can shut her down, then it is theirs for the taking, and if not, she's going to cause a lot of problems for this back line because, as we just said, there's no Leah Williamson still.
So, speaking of Manchester clubs, I threw in this little sneaky topic because it's a huge topic of conversation over here in the UK. The 2 Manchester clubs, Manchester United, Manchester City, did a deadline deal where they basically swapped players. So Grace Clinton now plays in blue and Jess Park now plays in red. And the conversation is who got the better end of that deal?
It's funny because I remember when we were like, this is a rumor, and you're like, I don't think that she'd be stupid enough to cross that divide. Here we are. Although I think Grace Clinton is getting the worst end of that from the fans. It seems like Jess Park's getting a little easier from City fans, or is that wrong? Is that just my perspective over here in the United States?
No, that's probably about right.
Yeah, okay. Who got the better end of the deal? In terms of players or in terms of teams?
No, in terms of players. So Manchester City or Manchester United, who got the better end of that deal?
I see why this is a really big debate.
It's a huge debate.
I think City got the better end of it.
Oh, we're gonna have fight.
Tell me why you think United.
Okay, I feel like United got, and it got proven by the cracker of a goal that Jess Park scored this weekend. I think Manchester United got the better end of the deal because Clinton and Ella Toon played very similar football, and they kept getting in each other's way. And most of Ella Toon's role last season was clearing up after Clinton. However, Jess Park plays a very different role of football and is both a very attacking midfielder. You should see the goal that she scored this weekend. She is a very young player, very raw talent that I think can be shaped in Man United. And I just think it takes away that having too much similarity in the midfield that they had. It gives them a different perspective. It gives them a different outlet. So I think Park is more of the finished product. Clinton still has a long way to go.
We talked about this so much last season that Grace Clinton and Ella Toon just didn't play well together. Something about their styles, it doesn't complement each other. We talked about that with United. We talked about that with the Lionesses during the Euros. We've talked about it plenty. So from that perspective, I think it was a great decision for United and a great decision for Clinton, both, for her to move on to another club, because United is invested in Ella Toon, and if one can stay and one can go, that's what's going to happen. And for them to get Jess Park for that, incredible move by the club. I just simply think that you said Grace Clinton is still in development, and I just think that her ceiling is so high, and I think she has the potential to be one of the best midfielders in the world. And that is the sole reason I said that City got the better end of it, because I can see what she could become. And that is one of the best midfielders in the world. And it's hard to argue with potentially getting one of them on your team. And that's it. Simple as that. But I think both things can be true, to be honest. And at the end of the day, I think it's a good move for both clubs. I think it was the right move for City and it was the right move for United. But me, I'm going to bet on the potential of Grace Clinton. All right, I guess that's it. Allie, what are you most looking forward to this weekend for the WSL matchup?
Obviously, the Mike and Ali derby is always a fun one. So yeah, West Ham take on Brighton this weekend, which I am going to, and it's going to be a very early start, but be very excited by. Aston Villa Liverpool is going to be a good one, I think, because both teams we had not doing so well. Aston Villa have done much better than we thought. Liverpool obviously where they are at, so we shall see where that goes. And then obviously Manchester City and Tottenham, big test for Tottenham. Can they carry on this momentum?
I think we're finally going to see London City against an opponent that they're not going to get smacked by. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do against Everton. Chelsea are taking on Leicester City. And then, of course, we just talked about United hosting Arsenal. That's the one I'm going to have on. My goodness. It's going to be fun.
I will laugh so hard if Everton do smack London City after that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if that happens, we need to talk about what's going on at London City, because that shouldn't be happening. For who they have on that team, that should not be happening. But we'll find out. All right. That's it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show.
Yeah. Make sure you check out our Patreon. Me and Mike will have an episode of the other 8 up there. We're doing an episode of News in 10. All of that good stuff. And like I said, it costs you the price of a cup of coffee per month, and it does help us keep going.
That's for us here this week. I've been Sarah.
And I've been Ali.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.